Hello and welcome to Thornton360. I'm Todd Barnes. We begin with the latest from City Council. Council approved a resolution determining that the South Thornton urban renewal area continues to be a blighted area and that the Thornton Shopping Center itself is blighted. As a result, the South Thornton urban renewal area and the Thornton Shopping Center are appropriate for an urban renewal project. Accepting the conditions survey and making related findings are prerequisites to potential future City Council action authorizing the Thornton Development Authority to exercise its power of eminent domain to acquire all or a portion of the Thornton Shopping Center property. More on that in just a minute. Also approved a conceptual site plan for a 312-unit apartment complex at 104th Avenue and York Street. The Village of Sunny Acres is a planned community of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom rental apartment units. This public hearing was continued from the August 10th meeting to further address public safety and traffic concerns. Council also approved a conceptual site plan to allow for the development of a gas station and convenience store on an acre of land at 84th Avenue and I-25. And the city's 2021 private activity bond allocation was made to the Colorado Housing Finance Authority. This funding will allow CHFA to use the bond to assist first-time homebuyers in Thornton or to support an affordable housing project within the city should they receive an application for additional funding. To see the entire City Council meeting in high definition, tune to Xfinity Channel 881. You can also watch on demand anytime at thorntonco.tv or by downloading our app for Apple TV or Roku by searching Thornton in your device's app store. The next City Council meeting is Tuesday, September 28th. For more information about that meeting, you can go to gocot.net/council meetings. More now on the Thornton Shopping Center. Joining me here is Chad Howell. He's the redevelopment administrator for the city of Thornton, and he's intimately involved in the Thornton Shopping Center issue. Chad, give us a brief history of how long the city has been trying to deal with the Thornton Shopping Center.
Well, I think most of us know that the Thornton Shopping Center is one of the first developments that came about in the city of Thornton in the mid-1950s. Yeah. And probably for the last 20 years, it's been falling into disrepair as they lose good tenants and struggle to find replacements. About 15 years ago, a person in Chicago bought the property and discovered there was contamination on it. And since then, things have really gone downhill, I'm afraid, because he's had to put all his extra money into environmental investigations and cleanup activities. And in his words, he hasn't had any money to invest into the property to improve the conditions. So it's fallen into disrepair.
So getting areas like this redeveloped is a challenge for all the cities that encounter this type of situation. To talk about just the process that cities and Thornton have had to go through in this regard.
Oh, sure. You know, when we try to redevelop older urban areas, there's tools available to help even the playing field and manage risk for new owners. One of those is the voluntary cleanup program at the state, which works really well. It's well regarded. Unfortunately, the Thornton Shopping Center is not eligible to participate in that program because the dry cleaning chemicals that have leaked out have been there so long and have spread so far that the site cleanup was actually litigated in court under a different statute. And it makes it more difficult to find new owners for a property like this because significant liability goes with the title.
Yeah. So when you talked about litigated, tell me about how that was litigated and what the results of that were.
Well, sure. You know, actually the city had sponsored a redevelopment of the site on the south side of 88th Avenue where the neighborhood Walmart store is today. And this is about 15 years ago. And at the time, we knew we had some contamination on that site, and so we were testing, and we discovered all these dry cleaning chemicals that didn't have an obvious source. And so the more we tested, the more it looked like it was coming from Thornton Shopping Center. And as it turns out, there's a very old dry cleaning operation in the site that hasn't operated for many years that had leaked chemicals into the ground, and it had spread underneath 88th Avenue and even into the neighborhood to the east of the Walmart neighborhood store. So yeah, that was a surprise to us.
Yeah. So tell me about how the state gets involved in a situation.
Yeah, so our consultants that were working on the Walmart site actually reported the presence of dry cleaning chemicals to the state notified the owner, who was the new owner at the time, and that started the ball rolling on the cleanup process that the state enforces. And it always takes a long time. It always takes longer than the neighborhood would like to see, because you have to do several different iterations of testing on a site to determine the nature and extent of the problem before you can design a solution. Now, it's also arguable that 15 years is too long to wait for actual activity to start, but the simple fact is cleanup has started on the site, in particular in the areas of the contaminant plume that have spread over to the neighborhood. There are actual cleanup injections of solutions that'll help break down the dry cleaning chemicals. Those have been going on since earlier this year, and they should be completed. I think the current timeline is December.
I would imagine marketing a property like that has the issues that has is a difficult situation for the owner as well as the city.
Yeah, for the city, I started working with the city in 2017, and we were marketing the site to new owners at that time. And since that time, we've had the property under contract 4 times with prospective developers who have experience at developing contaminated sites. And in all 4 instances, the negotiations fell apart once it became apparent how much liability was going to come with owning that property, and also just the staggering costs of cleanup. The cost of cleanup is about double what the property's worth. So it's hard to find, when you start a project pro forma that's that upside down, it's hard to find a solution.
Right, right. So Thornton finds out about this, has known about it, is working to do that, but I'm imagining there's an issue of private property rights. You know, we can't come in there and just start doing cleanup when somebody else actually owns the property, correct?
Well, it's probably not a good idea, you see, because if the city came in and touched the contamination, we would become legally an operator under federal law, and that makes the city totally liable for everything that happens as a result of that contamination. The new owner, or the old owner, will still be liable, but we get in that liability bathtub, I suppose you could call it, with the owner, and that could be devastating because the city has very deep pockets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand. That makes a lot of sense. So tell me about what is the projected cleanup of the site look like at this point?
Well, right now, since the owner wasn't moving as quickly as the neighborhood or the state would have liked to see, they thought the most important thing to do right now is to do the off-site injections, which, as I said, are just about completed for now. The next step that needs to happen is the source area needs to be cleaned up. So underneath part of that shopping center building are fairly large concentrations of this dry cleaning chemical, and they're still fairly together. I mean, the stuff has migrated, but most of it's still there. You need to physically remove it. And so we've been meeting with the owner and with their consultant about a demolition of a portion of the building so they can get to the mass of the contamination that's there. And it won't be sexy. It'll be digging out with excavators and transporting to a landfill in the back of trucks. So we're hoping that can commence by spring. We're hoping, yeah.
So tell me about the efforts with the current owner just to facilitate the activity. That I know that there's been some court involvement for code violations and issues like that, so just give me a brief rundown of what we've been through.
Well, you know, as I said, we had at different times 4 development teams interested in the site, and since they all reached the same conclusion about the financial imbalance of any project there, we don't think we're able to get a private sector developer in there right now. So what we decided to do is a 2-pronged attack. We're going to either acquire some of the property voluntarily from the owner, or the city is considering eminent domain. In either case, we'll end up with enough of the property to commence more demolition and hopefully to finance the cleanup without physically owning it. So that's the That's the artful part of this whole process, is how can the city get involved in helping pay for the cleanup without enriching the current owner and without putting the city in unnecessary liability position.
Yeah. So it's probably a difficult task to balance the wise use of taxpayer funds in a situation like this.
It is, and you know, getting back to what you said about private property, in Colorado in particular, there's a very strong private property ownership rights ethic amongst the populace. And cities and counties and states don't usually step in and force people to do things. There's things we can do to compel them to do the right thing, but it's not like the East Coast where a city will come in and condemn a property for economic development purposes. That's pretty rare here. And in some places, it's unthinkable in Colorado. So that's another part of the equation that we have to balance.
Yeah. Anything else you can think of that's an important thing for us to know about that site?
Well, it's, you know, Todd, it's easy to conclude, and I would too if I lived in the neighborhood, that we're not doing anything. We're doing a lot behind the scenes. And it may not become apparent today, but let's all maybe try to grasp the concept that this is a very, very complicated project, probably the most complicated real estate project I've ever worked on in 30 years of doing cleanups and distressed properties in urban areas. So I'm not new to this. It's doable, but it's going to take time. And we feel confident we'll be able to have some kind of transformative effect on this property.
Good. We all hope for something better for that end of town eventually. And I appreciate all your work on that. Thanks for informing the audience about this important topic.
Happy to be here.
All right, thank you. If you'd like to stay up to date on all the efforts at the Thornton Shopping Center, you can visit the website we've set up for this purpose. Go to gocot.net/ThorntonShopCTR. In Adams, Arapahoe, and Douglas counties, 76% of individuals aged 12 and over have been vaccinated with at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. Unfortunately, each county remains in the CDC high community transmission category. That means the CDC recommends that all people, regardless of vaccination status, wear a mask when indoors in public places. Thornton Fire has been heralded nationally for its community response to the pandemic. Recently, Congressman Jason Crow visited Thornton Fire Station 1, a state-of-the-art facility that was dedicated earlier this year.
This facility is one of the best fire stations I've ever seen, but a station without great people is just a building. What was amazing to me is seeing the leadership, the innovation, the creativity out of the department here. The firefighters and their leadership are doing amazing work, and our community should be extremely proud of them.
Congressman Crow also recognized Thornton Fire for their dedication and innovation in the fight against COVID-19.
I thank Thornton Fire for their service, sacrifice, and unfailing commitment to all Coloradans. Chief?
Well, I'm so proud of our team and the people that put in this effort, and for Congressman Crow to come in and recognize that, it just makes me feel so good about what we're doing. We've had such great community and council support, and to have that recognized at the highest levels in our nation is tremendous.
Thornton Fire also recently received the Congressional Fire Services Institute Award for Excellence in Fire Service-Based Emergency Medical Services.
When we began receiving nominations for this award late last year, few departments had launched innovative and ambitious programs to address the outbreak of the COVID pandemic in the early stages, such as the one developed by your department. The Thornton Fire Department Pandemic Response Team program put your department on the front lines, working closely with public health to minimize the risk and provide prevention and early detection and treatment against the deadly virus.
Thornton Fire's pandemic response team included rapid testing for public employees, senior citizens, first responders, and other community members. They also conducted drive-through vaccinations for the community and implemented a monitoring program for symptomatic firefighters and their families and other essential city workers.
We thank you all. This is for our entire fire family. I appreciate it, and we'll keep moving forward with our mission. So thank you.
The next Household Hazardous Waste Recycling Days are September 22nd and 25th. For a discounted fee of 92 cents per pound, Adams County residents may bring their unwanted household chemicals to the Veolia, Colorado Household Hazardous Waste Recycling Center at 9131 East 96th Avenue in Henderson from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Proof of residency in Adams County is required. Cash and credit cards only. There are other restrictions and you need to make an appointment online before going. So visit gocot.net/trashrecycling or call 720-977-6200 for information and registration. That's it for this edition of Thornton 360. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.